Hello, welcome to this meeting, Transport Decision Meeting, held on the 13th of December at the Guildhall in Portsmouth. I'm Gerald Vernon-Jackson, I'm Cabinet Member for Transport, and I'm chairing this meeting. The usual stuff about safety, there's no fire alarms planned, so if there is one, it's real. And we don't meet outside by Victoria because of the ice rink, but at King Henry Street. And if you signed in, please sign out. Okay, colleagues, have we any apologies? I see all of us here. I think we have apologies from Barney, is that right? Barney Fry, on the basis he's not so well. And Felicity, are you apologising for?
For Liam Norman, who's the project manager for Bonchurch Edgware.
Lovely. Okay, anybody else? No? Let's go around and do introductions. So Simon, do you want to start off?
Councillor Simon Bowsher, I'm the Conservative spokesman for Transport.
Councillor Graham Heaney, I'm the Labour Group spokesman for Transport.
Abby Kelly, Principal Project Manager within the Infrastructure team.
Alison Harper from Democratic Services.
Felicity Tibbury, Assistant Director for Transport.
Joanne Eldridge, Transport Delivery Lead in the Transport team.
Martin Lavers, Assistant Director for Infrastructure.
David Newton, Strategic Manager for Highways and Urban Design in the Infrastructure team.
And last but by no means least,
Councillor Barrow, Madwick Independent for Transport.
Good.
For Transport.
Okay, wonderful. Colleagues, have we got any interests we need to declare? Nope. Okay. Item 3, question from Councillor Heaney. For the record, Graham, do you just want to read it out so that people the thousands who may be watching won't have the papers, and it would make more sense if they know what the question is?
No, I fully understand that. I'll happily read the question out. It says the Elm Grove Grove Road South Junction safety improvements were approved by the previous Cabinet member in December 2021. So has the Cabinet member agreed to the detailed proposals that are being consulted on so work on the scheme can begin?
So I think we can have a conversation about this, but we can't start work on the scheme because the consultation hasn't taken place, because there has to be a TRO, and that hasn't been advertised, will need to be advertised for 21 days as part of the statutory process. So the consultation on that part of the scheme hasn't happened, and so we can't implement before that consultation takes place. Graham, do come back.
I do have supplementary questions, yes. We were being told verbally at previous meetings that in fact, or in previous encounters, this matter did not need to come back to your Cabinet member decision meeting at all, given that the approval had been apparently given in 2021. So there does appear to be some confusion about how this is being implemented, because this scheme, I think, has been under development through the summer, and I am surprised that nobody picked up that there was a need for a TRO. Can you explain?
Yes, I think the issue is that there's a loss of car parking, and that will mean additional double yellow lines which need a traffic regulation order. So the intention, I don't think the intention when the scheme came forward was there to be any loss of car parking, but once the detailed stuff's been done, there is, and that means that we have to have, if there's going to be extra double yellow lines, we have to go through a legal process.
So my second supplementary, which I'm entitled to, is to ask, when will this TRO be prepared and presented? Because, as I had made the point earlier, this scheme, which is a road safety scheme, has already been waiting for 2 years.
So I hope that it'll be presented in the new year. Oh, 2024. Yes. But one of the things I'm learning in this portfolio is that time commitments to things appearing on streets are dangerous to give because things get pushed back and get pushed back and get pushed back. And so I think the intention is that it will come forward in the new year.
To clarify, it was the TRO I was interested in. Obviously, the work will start after that, so I don't know when that will be, and I was only, because we're at the TRO process, so then we can get on with it. Yep, thanks.
Is that okay? Okay. Graham, would it be helpful or useful to have under this bit as well, a question or discussion about EV charging points as well?
Well, I was going to ask, and I was going to leave it to the end of the meeting, whether you were going to make any statement about the situation or to brief us further, and whether you were going to do that in public or not in public.
So I think, I think it might be
We can leave it to the end of the meeting.
Okay, that's
like,
fine,
that's
yeah.
fine.
But
I will also say something prior to that, because I'll come to it when we come to the item. Yeah.
But it would seem to me a sensible thing to do to have a discussion on that issue. Is that all right, Simon? Is that okay?
That's fine, Gerald. I was just going back to Graham's question. As sort of a matter of it's a written question and you've given a verbal answer to it. Can we have the answer down on MIS with the decisions? Because otherwise there's going to be no formal record of the answer to Graham's question.
Alison, can we do can we take the words of the discussion and print them onto MIS? Is that all right? Would that be helpful, Simon?
Yes, the only thing is, I'd say with MIS, it'll give a record of all the decisions that you've taken.
Yeah.
But this will disappear into the twilight zone.
So,
so
if we can put that in, that's
for
fine.
all those thousands that might be interested to know the answer.
I have to say, Emma, I noticed after a while I wasn't getting MIS, and it did take me some time to notice. And it seems my PCC email address will not accept MIS, and it won't send it on to me. So, but it took me a while to notice that I wasn't getting the riveting weekly update.
Gerald, could I beg to differ on that one? Because we all do get that, and I would refer you to the leader's speech at your dinner where he said you never read the reports anyway.
No, even so, I might not have read things, but I did notice I wasn't getting them. Anyway, okay, shall we move along, ladies and gentlemen? Castle Road TRO. Now, hello. Do you want us to walk us through this?
I will do, Alison. Will you bear with me? Right. Okay, good afternoon all. I'm here to talk you through the information paper on Castle Road, and I've just got some slides to just run through. So bear with me. Okay, so firstly, just a little bit of background and context for those of you who are sort of not familiar with the scheme. Ultimately, Castle Road has been temporarily closed since 2020 under the TTRO, and ultimately the reason for it originally being put in place was for COVID-19 measures, and it was to create space for walking, cycling and social distancing. What I just wanted to highlight here as well, that it's part of a wider programme of works under the District Local Town Centre schemes, and Castle Road is one of those work streams that have been delivered. Again, sort of highlighting that Castle Road has been identified as an area within a unique setting in Southsea with a mixture of residential, independent shops and local businesses and restaurants. And what we want to do as well is just emphasise the importance and, I guess, a unique opportunity what we have here to unlock Castle Road to enhance and transform the area, supporting businesses, ensuring good placemaking and in an urban setting for the future. Here you can see just a water illustration just in terms of our concept and vision of the area moving forward. And again, we've just got a bird's eye image. So you've got the southern side, which is where Giuseppe's is, where there has been some additional work done already as part of phase 1 implementation. And then at the other end of the scheme, which is where it ends, it's just the southern side, which is a more residential area, just south of Hambrook Street. Okay, so put this into sort of context. The initial TRO was published in late 21, so between the 5th and November and 26th of November. We took into consideration a number of different feedback as through a public consultation that was also done throughout the summer of 21, with some really positive responses in terms of the road closure, looking at the integration and stakeholder engagement as part of a design team as well. And some of the positives that really came out of that was about sort of clean air, the sustainable cycle and pedestrian access routes as well. When we did the initial TRO, there was some objections, there was some feedback that we looked to, or we sought to review, speak to residents, speak to businesses, and then put that into a new TRO that was then designed taking into those considerations. And ultimately, we then had a revised TRO that went out in early 22, so 24th of January to the 14th of February. This was really important because this sought to seek issues that were raised regarding access for local residents, especially at the southern end near Hambrook Street, and also for businesses and deliveries. So making sure that we looked at that wider context for the area and access. And then the TRO, I think it's just really important to highlight here as well that it differs to most of the other TROs. This is hence why this is information paper only, due to the restrictive nature that's put in place on it. So we have to go through a very careful due diligence process in terms of objections and how we look at implementing those and how we look at potentially seeking advice from others to mitigate those risks, essentially moving forward. And on sealing this TRO, if there were any objections outstanding, we would have to go through a public inquiry route. Issues just to highlight and to bring to attention is primarily the issue is regarding access. So the council has confirmed on seeing the TRO that residents will be able to access their property 24/7. This is around the sort of terminology of unvetted access and what that means. So as part of the design, we've been very mindful about the bollards that are in there, trying to remove what we can do, and again working very closely with Hampshire Constabulary as well in terms of what needs to be done and implemented down there. So again, that sort of collaborative partnership approach. Owning or living at a property within the restricted area is reason for access. So again, it's making sure that deliveries, private vehicles, picking up and dropping off of residents are included. So again, making sure there's access for taxis or local delivery, shopping goods. And what we've looked at doing to ensure that sort of due diligence is in place, I have sought legal advice as well, and letters being drafted for residents to provide them some assurance as well. So in terms of next steps, the TRO is going to be sealed with implementation for early January, so in the new year, January 24. And what we're looking at doing is this is an opportunity to unlock that area, ultimately for phase 2 of the Castle Road works, which we're going to be continuing to work very closely with the community with a really proactive approach to engagement and design. And I think that's really critical to take away from this, is that it's about a partnership approach with those living on the road, and also how we can manage that moving forward carefully. And what we want to do ultimately is create an enjoyable space, celebrating creativity and a well-designed high street in an urban community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have to say I think it's made an enormously positive change to Castle Road, and it's been really good, but let's get Brian.
Thank you, Chair. Anybody who's known me over the last 40, 50 years will know that I think Castle Road is probably the best road in Portsmouth. I absolutely love it. So the things which have been done, fully back them. I'm sure that the road itself could be some sort of tourist attraction. Carnaby Street, you know what I mean, specialised shops there. I'd take away the carp and all those sort of buildings that they used to have there. But Peter Sellers was born there up on the corner. And is there any other place of interest that could make it into a tourist area which could go in there, brochures and everything else? Because I think it's a beautiful little road. I'm glad there's no cars on there. I would certainly stop scooters and bikes going down there as well. But but yeah, is there any other things of interest there that you know of or that we could explore? Because I'd like to make it is special, but I'd like to make it even more special.
So admittedly, I'm not aware of any other sort of places of special interest on the street, but it doesn't mean that there aren't any. So for me to take that away, that's something we can pick up with the residents, and we've got a very close residential community and business association that we can go and feedback onto. So I think that's something as part of phase 2 that we can make sure we really express ourselves with in terms of that.
build a secret dungeon that nobody knows about that was there from Napoleonic times. You know, anything yeah, suppose I think it's a beautiful, beautiful road. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I think I have eaten a pie at the Pie and Vinyl, if that counts as historic.
Yes, well, we're not going to racy stories about what we've got up to in Castle Road. So, I mean, actually, I agree. I mean, I think it's been a real success. Obviously, a lot of work's gone on with the residents, and you've done a lot of hard work on it, and it is looking really good. And I think consolidating it now in this is great. So I have no problems with this at all. Very happy to support.
Simon?
Well, from the outset, I mean, I agree with what's going on there. I have to say it's not a road I do frequent too much, but I would actually point out to Councillor Madgwick, there is actually a scooter rack just on Kings Road Junction there, so it would be used, it would be there, and I think Carnaby Street was very 60s. It's not very 21st century, but hey ho. I'm more interested in the TRO bit. I just want to get a better understanding of where we are with that. I think it's a typo in 5.1. Consultation period on the revised TRO ran between the 24th of January 2022 to the 14th of February 2023. There was one objection within the 21-day consultation. I'm assuming that's 2022 for the second date and not a 13-month consultation.
I can confirm it was a 21-day consultation. That is a typo error on my behalf.
No, it was the thing you hid there to be able to spot.
Because it's a pretty thorough consultation process, I have to say, on that basis. But just joking aside, as I understand it, and I'm sort of looking to the traffic officers here, a TTRO runs for 18 months maximum. So this went in 2020, which would have taken it into the beginning of 2022. And the TRO that we're looking to do has been pulled twice. So what's happened with the TTRO that's kept this in place between early 2022 and where we are now, almost 2 years later?
So you're correct. The first TTR was put in place for 18 months, so it took us up to sort of the early 22, and then ultimately what's happened is there's been 2 extensions off the back of that for 6 months. So that's running through. So the actual the TTRO that's currently in place runs out in mid-March now.
Okay, so I think you sort of slightly clarified it. When we have a TTRO, and I'm talking generally now, I understood that the maximum term it could run was for 18 months before it had to be converted into a TRO and go out to consultation, which is obviously the process that was started and pulled. Do we have the powers to extend a TTRO beyond that 18 months then? Is yes the answer to that?
Yes, so we go apply to the Secretary of State, I believe, and then ultimately, yeah, we put in the reasoning and explanations to why it's been extended, and predominantly that's around resource, and then it's been extended for 6 months, and then we went back early this year as well. I think it was August time, September time, to extend it for a further 6 months.
So do those 2 6 months extension take us up to and including where we are now today, or do they fall before today?
They take us up to where we are today, and they will provide us some buffer in the new year. So the intention is that it will not be extended again. We want to make sure these works are implemented early January time, and then that will be, the TRO will be sealed early January, and the works will be implemented mid-January time, and that's all set up and ready to go. But ultimately, then the TTRO will just expire as the TRO comes into place.
That's fine. I'm fine with the scheme and what you're looking to do. I just wanted to understand the legal bits around TTROs, because when I looked at the timeline, it didn't quite make sense to what my understanding of a TTRO was.
No, and that's acknowledged. It is an unusual circumstances, and it has gone through the formalised process that we applied to Secretary of State on. So we've covered those off.
Okay, if that's the end of questions, I think this is just for noting and we don't need to make a decision, so thanks very much for that. So next we go on to Bonchurch and Edgware. And Liam is not here.
No, I'm introducing this report on behalf of Liam Norman. So this report is on the experimental TRO 8/2023 for Bonchurch and Edgware roads, the one-way roads except for cycles. The purpose of the report is to consider the objection to making permanent the experimental one-way except cyclist streets on Bonchurch Road and Edgware Road. The recommendations are that the Cabinet Member for Transport considers the objection to the making permanent of the experimental one-way working in Edgware Road and Bonchurch Road and approves the provision of the Portsmouth City Council Bonchurch and Edgware Road one-way except cycles experimental TRO to be made permanent. So the requests were received prior to 2009 initially with a proposal in March 2009 as outlined in the report for a one-way to be introduced, though this was not progressed due to objections at the time. Further requests were then received in 2022, which led to PCC undertaking a thorough feasibility exercise where we reviewed accident and collision data, obtained some traffic and turning counts, and undertook some speed surveys to understand the data on those specific roads. Resident engagement took place in October 2022 to confirm the final option, which is included in section 5 of the report, which was the preferred option of the one-way road with contraflow cycling on Bonchurch and Edgware Road. And then additional traffic count data and turning count data was collected to assess the best option for the direction of traffic in those two roads. So the ETRO was initiated to assess the suitability of the direction of one-way traffic on those two roads, and it began in April 2023 up until October 24. And in that consultation period, one objection has been received. And it's included in the report. The surveys indicated that Bonchurch Road would be the more suitable to carry the traffic westbound. There's good visibility, and the objection mentions that likely accidents from cars exiting Bonchurch at Milton Road, but the data, and this is heavily focused on the data, shows that a review of incidents along Milton Road indicated that historically more accidents actually occurred close to exiting vehicles from Edgware Road onto Milton Road, where traffic exits the Esso garage. So that was a high collision location. So during this trial, no incidents have been recorded, and within Portsmouth City Council, we continue to monitor any incidents that happen in those locations, and we will continue to. And when this is taken forward, PCC will propose to include some keep clear markings on Milton Road at the exit of Bonchurch Road to improve traffic flow. So for that reason, we're recommending that this experimental order is made permanent and that it is in line with the Portsmouth Transport Strategy to prioritise walking and cycling, deliver cleaner air, with the contraflow cycling on Bonchurch and Edgware roads. It includes the provision of the experimental order, and it makes the roads more accessible for cyclists and creating more space through the introduction of the one-way system. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed. Just a small thing, which again I've picked up on the hidden typo. On page 10 and 11, or 20 and 21, depending on which system you're using. So the last page of the report, Appendix C, option 2 had two, it says here, had 2 people saying it was the right thing to do, which at 24%. Option 1 had 82 people and listing it as 75%. The weighting isn't quite correct, moving from numbers to percentages.
apologies for that.
That's all right. I just think I'm sure we can probably vaguely work out what the correct percentage is, but anyway, it's nice if we have something accurate. As this is in my ward, which I don't think precludes me because I don't live on it, Councillor Kimberly Barrett has asked me just to say that the door knocking that she's done produced slightly different figures in favour and against. The door knocking she did was 78 in favour and 12 against, but it's still hugely in favour as well. And when I've been talking to people who live around there, they've been very happy with it. Inevitably, it didn't go in the time before because both roads wanted to go the same way. And we took the view that one would have to go one way and one had to go the other. But people I've talked to who were very opposed before it went in are now very happy. And pleased that was there. So, colleague Graham, do you want to go first?
Yeah, it's just a question really about, I see the comment about Milton Road, Bonchurch Road Junction having keep clear, that's good.
Yeah.
The only problem, the keep clear is essentially advisory, and it's amazing how many people don't bother to think about it, thinking about someone either coming in or coming into the road or coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, there is such a thing as the sort of yellow square box junctions, but presumably we can only use those in certain circumstances. Is that correct? We couldn't use them for general things like that. Is that right? Because I think it has some more legal strength if you get into box junctions.
I'm sure Felicity will tell us.
Yeah, you're right. They'd be used for certain locations. And I think our advice at in this area is to use keep clear. But we will obviously, as Joe's outlined, keep it under. We'll monitor it as we go forward.
Okay, Brian?
No, everything's great with me. The percentages are nearly right, and I think it's totally in favour. So go ahead, no problems with me.
Right. Simon? Yeah. That's fine. No, don't worry.
My view on those sorts of things is if it is a locally driven thing, that's what the locals want, then I'm not going to interfere being sat in Farlington telling people in Bonchurch Road what they do and do not want.
Okay, great.
I agree as well. Yep. It's your ward, so I'm sure you're much better placed than we are to make a view on that.
Okay, in which case I'm very happy to confirm the recommendations as set out on the paper. Okay, now, I think, moving on, we have to do a formal moving into exempt session, but colleagues, if we don't refer to the exempt appendix, I think we can keep in open session. Is that right, Martin? Yes. Colleagues, is that okay for people? If not, then we'll just need to go into closed session. Okay. So I'm going to formally move that we have the exclusion of the press and public, but only in relation to the confidential appendix, and that we will continue the discussion in open session, and try not to use information in that private appendix. Okay, is everybody happy with that? Okay, great. Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm going to stand in for Barney, who couldn't be with us today. Barney Fry, he's rather poorly. But he did send me a presentation, a few slides, which I want to run through with you today as well. And the paper, the recommendations in the paper, this is the, in relation to the hard pavement replacement. So that's the bus apron down at the bus interchange there. The recommendations are to appoint Mildren Construction as contractor to undertake the design and build of a pavement replacement, and that appointment is to take place in advance of the conclusion of the ongoing legal process. So let me just run through some slides. I think this will be helpful. First of all, quick reminder why the works are required. Back in 2017, the bus apron, which is the area where the buses pull up in front of the building, that was built, but it started cracking, and there was cracking evident straight away. So we had to carry out pothole repairs while we were actually also having conversations with the consultant who did the design and also the contractor who installed that. And there is a legal challenge against those two organisations ongoing at the moment. It is only affecting the bus apron. We have had to look at the pavements either side, so that's Millennium Way and Hertha Way, and there's some superficial surface damage, but nothing particularly significant, so it is only the bus apron itself that we're looking to replace. We've had technical experts in there doing coring, we've done the assessments, and looked at the findings of the trial holes, and we have a outline design which we're comfortable with, which is basically the removal of the existing pavement down to the reinforced concrete layers below and replacement of that fill. We've gone through a procurement process already, a tender process. We've identified a preferred bidder, that is Mildren Construction. There is a paper to go to through Procurement Gateway this week, actually, and then once that goes through, the programme of delivery will be, as detailed there, there's some outline design to be completed, detailed design, pre-construction mobilisation, then eventually we'll be able to start construction. We're looking at that work taking place in autumn 24, not necessarily because it takes that long to get to that point, but rather we just want to avoid the busy summer period. We've undertaken consultation with various groups, taxis, bus companies, the Cycle Forum, etc. And that, I've got more details about that, but not necessarily included in the paper that's come before you today. But I think the key messages here is when the works are carried out on the bus apron itself, what we're going to do is stop all buses using the bus apron. So we did look at an option of perhaps having half of the apron working and putting some of the buses on there. But the bus company said, no, don't do that. Just we'll come off the bus apron, we'll park nearby, and so the building itself will still be operational and people can go in and out of that. But just get on with the work, get on with the construction, and get it done as quickly as possible. And the best way of doing that as quickly as possible is, clear the area out of buses, and the contractor can get in and do the work in effectively one fell swoop. So we've had the various boards, etc. We've got this decision meeting today. I mentioned about the Procurement Gateway, which we're going to go through at the end of this week. We've spent money already. There is sunk costs. We've spent money on the actual repairs today, and that is part of the legal challenge as well. So we are chasing the designer and the contractor through the legal process to get refund for all that. All those costs. We've had an estimate of contractor costs going forward, and that's included in the table in front of you there. So 1.8 million, approximately 1.8 million for contractor costs, and then we've allowed contingency on top of that. We are within the envelope of the capital programme, though, so we feel reasonably comfortable with that. And I do want to state that an important part of this is the legal process, but also we don't want to wait around until that is complete before we get in and repair the apron. If we do, there is a high risk that we're actually going to have to stop buses going onto the apron before we've actually been able to carry out the repair works. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Could you go back to the slides?
Yeah, of course.
Do you mind? First of all, where the money was. There we are. In the bit that says spend October 23, there's 374,000 for non-contracted costs, 0 and 0, but it goes to 375 at the total.
Yes. Where's that extra grand gone?
So is this handling costs?
That's...
Yeah. Martin
Yes.
wouldn't notice.
Who had that lunch? Who knows?
Yeah. And then can you get back to the map of where we're going to put the new bus stop? There is one of these over where the stopping lay-by is for people to be able to pull in if they're collecting people from the bus or from the train or anything like that. We're going to need to provide some alternative for that facility if the buses are going to be on that bit, because if we're going to encourage people to use the train, they often need to be picked up by cab or whatever, and we need to make sure there's a provision for people to be able to collect passengers or drop people off.
Yep, agreed. So that provision will be made, and I'm not sure about exactly where that's going to be. Apologies.
No, as long as it's going to be somewhere.
Yeah.
Sure, that's fine. Simon?
Yeah, perhaps you could go to the money slide again, please, Martin. The non-contracted costs at the top there, if this goes close to exempt, then say so. That will include all the legal fees with the legal action against the previous designers, would it or would it not?
So what's included in that is everything apart from the cost of the repairs, etc., that we've been carrying out on the bus apron.
Does that include the legal fees?
Where? So. Okay.
So yes. So that yes, and that's ongoing.
And that's a separate thing, unconnected with this. It's a separate budget head for the legal fees or does it come out of this amount of money on the screen now?
No, everything that you see on the screen now is what we've spent.
So that's what we've spent. So everything within that 3.13 million is what we've spent on all the legal fees to do with taking action against the previous design and all of the previous patching up work as well. So what we're going for in that 3.13 is everything to do with the angst we've had before and a complete replacement to get us to where we should have been in 2018.
Yes, exactly. So 3.13 is effectively going to be all our costs from 2017 to the completion of the scheme. We're going to be seeking all that money back.
Now that is a 4.9 million pound bid in the capital programme that was agreed through budget. But obviously within that, we're basically saying that we should be able to recoup all of the 3 million, because it's obviously you've got a bit of latitude there, from the legal action to zero off, hopefully, that transport portfolio budget of 4.9 million or whatever figure ends up to that particular thing. What happens, or what is the implication on the capital programme from transport if that legal challenge fails?
So that is a risk to the council. That is, we'll have to find, the council itself will have to find the money or go through its insurers, etc.
Okay, so what we're saying then is that what we put in as a capital bid was essentially zero because you were looking to spend it and get the money back, but actually it could have a minimum of £3.1 million impact on the capital programme if the legal challenge fails.
Yeah, if it fails, absolutely.
Right. So that would be the transport portfolio's capital programme that would impact. What other schemes would that potentially impact if that legal challenge fails?
I think it's too soon to say, Simon. I mean, the legal challenge is going to take a period of time. We may be in a different place when that is concluded. We may have other schemes that we won't necessarily be able to deliver, or alternatively, perhaps this is a question for Chris Ward, obviously not in the room today, who could make a judgment about where that money would come from. The important thing that we've done, that I've done to bring this today, is recognising the risk, financial risk to the council, but also recognising we've de-scoped the project as much as possible to effectively de-risk it as much as possible. So the only piece of work which we're going to do is for the bus apron, replace the bus apron.
I mean, I don't disagree, Gerald, that this work needs to be done. This has been a problem child since I was a cabinet member. We're constantly patching it up. And the worst case scenario is the buses fall down through the bottom of it and end up in the mud, basically. You know, a new generation of mudlarkers, I guess.
So they won't do that?
No, I know. Perhaps I'm just being a little bit flippant. The work needs to be done. It's more to do, what I'm interested in is the financial aspect of what the wider impact is likely to be on the council, which is obviously perhaps a question for Chris Ward, and something that perhaps all groups need to take into consideration when we actually get to February, in the fact that there could be a £4.9 million capital programme issue. How long is a piece of string? Two questions. How long do we think this legal process is going to take to get to completion, is the one hand. And same sort of question, how long is this work actually going to take to do down at the Hard as well?
Okay, so from the legal, your first part of the question from a legal point of view, the approach at the moment that our legal team is taking is to go through mediation, and that has got a time limit of the middle of 2025 to it. So effectively in 2024, that's when they expect to do the vast majority of the work. And if it hasn't finished by 2025, then effectively we'd have to go to court. I don't know how long it will take, that process would take, but could be a couple of years. The construction work starting in the autumn, I've been told it's about 4 months work to do to completely replace that bus apron.
Perhaps one final question, if I can. So we're looking at the summertime by the time this is going to be complete in theory, then, by the sound of it. It might be useful, Gerald, the bit that makes me nervous is the legal side of it, if I'm honest, and the legal challenge, because from memory, the design company are a very, very small company, I think is probably the fair way to describe it. They could quite easily wind themselves up, go bang. What are our chances of actually getting any of this money back should that happen? And I'm perhaps asking an engineer a legal question here, I get that. But I would perhaps suggest, Gerald, that what we probably need to a future transport portfolio is perhaps a for information meeting about the legal aspect of where we're at with regards to this and what the risks are, so that we know exactly where we stand. So it's not about the construction, it needs to be done, but I think we need to have a better understanding with regards to the legal challenge and the chance of getting our money back.
And even small enterprises have insurances.
There is still a risk.
No,
it's still an identifiable risk.
I don't disagree. I think it would be helpful if we could have a joint thing from Chris Ward and Peter Bulff about both financial and legal risks, and they will know better what they are.
I would agree with that. I mean, if you wanted to do both of them together, that's fine. But I think we need to understand the bit from Chris Ward, because we got budget in February, and I think we need to know what impact there's going to be, and it would be better being done through this sort of forum as opposed to each group doing their own little bits.
I'm sure Alison's taken a note of this, and we'll get that happen. Anything else on this one? No, Graham?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's really a question about the, well, on the slide there, it says forecast cost. How much leeway do we have? Should that, because forecast costs often usually go up rather than down. How accurate of that is a forecast, really?
So I've included in there a £650,000 contingency sum, which is about 30% on that construction cost, which is, at this stage, is about right. Probably further to that, 3.135k, honestly, the sooner we get started, probably the more confidence we'll have around the actual spend.
And the other issue is around the timing of the works. It's going to take 4 months. You suggested it would take part in the autumn. Is that to try and avoid the main holiday season, or are we just saying it's got to be done then and there's no alternative? Because that's obviously the time when the weather's not quite so good.
Yes, and there's a balance between doing it in the summer when the contractor would prefer to do it, but actually the disruption to the bus services there would be probably too great. You've got the historic dockyard in the area. You've got the obviously Gun Wharf as well. There's quite a high footfall there. So apart from the actual Christmas period, and we haven't sorted out the specifics about working over Christmas, but it's a better time to do it in autumn.
Okay, lovely, Brian.
Thank you, Chair. I might as well throw this away. I've written more down here on this subject than anything else, and Simon's covered practically all of it, and yourself has answered quite a bit of it. But yeah, we know we've got to get on with the work. There's no ifs or buts about there, and you're saying this is going to be September, October time, something like that, yeah. We can't be 100% sure of getting our money back. I presume we're pretty sure we should win it, but at the end of the day, there's a small company involved which quite easily fold under it. But I was going to say, are the companies insured? And would we get our money that way? But you said you think they are, or they're not, Chair?
I don't know. Martin?
Yeah, I did ask our legal team about that, and they did do that check, and they are insured.
But would that insurance still pay out if the company wind up?
So I don't know. Don't know the answer to that.
Right. I think we said at an earlier meeting on this that there was only one tender involved to do the new work. Was that right or wrong?
So the preferred bidder is Mildren. I think we'd take that.
That didn't answer my question, politician.
If we're going to have that discussion, I think we'll need to close the meeting for the public, because that's the thing involved in the confidential appendix.
Yep. Okay.
Do you want to keep going down that line, Brian?
No, I won't.
Okay.
No, I'm happy to withdraw at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Folks, I think we're happy to go ahead and get this done. So thank you very much indeed. Happy with the recommendations on the paper on item 7 with this. Okay. All right. Can we now come out of closed session? Well, we were formally in it, and it's important that we are, because that keeps that confidential appendix confidential and not able to be taken out. So, Graham, EVs.
Well, can I start?
Of course.
I'm sorry to introduce what may appear to be a sour note to this discussion, but you have agreed to do it. But at yesterday's council meeting, I asked a question because I had submitted a request to you in writing that you make a statement under Standing Order 26 on the matter of the EV charging points being closed down for 3 weeks and the impact that it's having. In this, your response was to make a rather petty and inaccurate attempt to score points off me, rather than to deal with the matter that I raised, which I was perfectly entitled to do and to ask you to do. And I'm not sure whether you had read my email properly, but that certainly was the case. And I mean, it was disrespectful to me because it was a serious matter which required consideration, but also, I think, more importantly, to all the people who in Portsmouth have electric vehicles and have been struggling over the last 3 weeks to get their vehicles charged properly, and also, you know, probably facing extra costs having to use the rather limited number of ones that exist. I'm disappointed you chose to answer in that way when you could have said something like, I'm happy to give a briefing at the transport meeting, which of course I would have been quite happy to accept. So I do hope that you wouldn't do that again when I raise an issue like that, or any other member for that matter, because I don't think it's appropriate.
So, on the issue of EV charging, are there any questions anybody would like to put?
Yes.
Graham, the floor is yours.
Can you give us an update on the current discussions with the 3 companies who are responsible for both managing and providing the EV charging points? And can you give us any indication as to when they might resolve their difficulties and get us the opportunity to have the EV charging points restored?
So, Graham, you and I have had a long conversation on this, and I'm happy to see if I can help in terms of providing an update. There are 4 different players or different levels of organisation that appear to be part of the mix with this. There's the government office that provides the money, which is the, oh, I forgot what it's called. Felicity, what's it called?
Office for Zero Emission.
There we are. Then there's Southern Electric, who are the provider of the electricity. The 2 companies that have installed and run the charge points, Joju and Ubertricity, and the council, who've allowed the use of the road space and the light columns and bid for the initial money. So my understanding of where we're at, and I think we have to start by saying that the City Council was surprised by the intervention of Southern Electric or SSEN when they contacted the City Council to say that they had safety concerns about the points that have been put in by the contractors, who, as some of them have been in for several years. So Southern Electric contacted the council, said they had safety concerns. We've talked with the suppliers of them, and we've passed on Southern Electric's concerns. The contractors, the companies that have provided them, have been out to do inspections of all the different points and provided paperwork to Southern Electric to show that they have been to examine all those points to make sure that they are in their view safe. Southern Electric are wanting to go and do inspections as well. We continue to put as much pressure as we possibly can on Southern Electric to get this resolved as soon as possible, because it is hugely inconvenient to lots of people, including me. Luckily, I've got somewhere else I can charge it at home as well as at the ones on the street, but it impacts lots of people. And we've been very clear that we want to make sure that people who don't own somewhere with a drive are able to charge their cars and be able to have an electric vehicle. So we continue to press Southern Electric to give green light to having these charge points operational again, but they are the people who control the timescale, and they have only given us what the timescale that they legally have to operate to, not what is actually going to happen. So they've given us a time window that they will respond. I hope that by the end of the week we will know more and we can do an update to all members, but also to everybody who uses them. But that at the minute is as much as I've got that that I can pass on. Graham.
I mean, I do understand the difficulty that council is in, because it's not, in a sense, our problem, because we don't control the elements of the package, so to speak, and I do understand that. And I wasn't aiming my criticism at the council as such, but it does seem utterly astonishing that we have a company, and presume we are talking about SSE here, who seem to take the view that they don't have to get a move on at all in getting the relevant work and or paperwork or whatever it needs to allow us to then resume the supply of electricity to these points. I don't know if you can tell me what their so-called legal timetable is, so that at least we know by what time they must do it. I mean, obviously we hope it's not months, but can you further enlighten us on this mystery as we unravel it?
At the moment, we're trying to work really closely with Southern Electric to get this resolved as soon as possible, because the key thing is getting these reconnected as soon as we possibly can, so that people can charge their cars. It may be that we're able to get some of them reconnected sooner rather than others, and having some on is better than having none on. I'm grateful to the people from all the companies involved, Colas, Electricity, Joju and Southern Electric, who are all working to try to resolve this with the City Council. I think once we've got them back on again, there will be a time to reflect about what happened and how things might have worked better. But I think at the moment, the priority should be to be working with all the companies who are all working to try to resolve this, and to get everything back on as soon as is humanly possible, and then to have a look at it again when we have a little more time to do it with some detachment. So the time frame that Southern Electric worked to is, I think, a 28-day time window. But of course, that may not. If we're working with them and cooperating with them, and that's all going well, that I'm sure is. If things go badly and we end up fighting with each other, the 28 days might multiply. So I think it's really important we work with them to get this resolved.
I don't have a problem with working with people, but it seems that some parts of this jigsaw are more are less interested in getting the matter resolved for the public satisfaction, than maybe others are. So that seems unfortunate, but I think I've probably got enough information at the moment. But we welcome further updates as things come through.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I hope that we will have more to be able to tell people at the end of the week. Simon?
Of course. I hear what you were saying with the timeline, and I think certainty is something that needs to come out of whatever statement is going to be made at the end.
If we can
of the
give it, Simon, and the problem is at the moment we can't give any certainty, and I don't want to give people information and timelines that we're then unable to stick to.
Okay.
I just think giving people information that we're not confident in is worse than giving no timetable.
I've got. I think Graham's right. Get this sorted out and get everybody back online is the priority.
Yeah.
But I do think, and you can do it through this, or Graham and I can bring a joint notice of motion to make it happen, whichever way you want to look at it. I think there needs to be an investigation and a summary as to what has happened, what didn't happen, and what it is going forward. Now, the clear thing to do will be to bring that to one of the transport portfolio meetings in the future. I'm not suggesting it's the next one or the one after. I think reasonably something in the summer would probably be something once everybody is back online and everybody's had a good chance to have a look at it, that somewhere perhaps in about 6 months' time we have a lessons learned, what went right, what went wrong type scenario with regards to this. Having said that, I've got 2 questions. The first is to do with the bays, because the bays clearly aren't operational at this moment in time. Are they still dedicated as EV charging
Anybody
point?
can park in them.
Are we just saying anybody can
Anyone
park
can
in
park
them
in them.
at this moment in time?
Yep.
So once they become back online,
Then
and somebody happens to be with an internal combustion engine parked in there, are we going to give clear notification that they are suddenly back online and not just whack the poor unfortunate who happens to be in there when
there will
somebody
be
flicks the
signage
switch?
to make sure people know.
The other question I've got is, are there any costs that are going to be associated with doing all of this work? And are those costs, if there are them, likely to end up on the City Council?
I don't know, but when we look at it, that will need to be one of the things, because there'll be costs. I expect there'll be significant costs to the operators, because they'll have lost that income stream for a considerable period. So we do need to look around. I think there has to be a report about what's happened, because this might happen to another council somewhere else in the country. And I think we've got a duty to our colleagues in councils all around the country to, when we've been through this and got it resolved and got them all back up and running, to make sure that the lessons we learn here are transmitted around the country just in case this happens somewhere else.
I guess there's a degree of where the liability is, because if it's the installing companies that should have provided this paperwork and didn't, then my simplistic view would be, well, if you've lost out on money that you're earning, that's through your own fault. Obviously, if it's something that we should have provided as a city council, then there's a slightly different nuance to that argument. And the second part of that is everybody's running around doing all this testing, whether it's the companies and or Southern Electric or whatever they are currently called. There may well be costs associated with all this retrospective work, and it's where that actually sits as well. So I would be interested to know, and we can do that as part of this report, what the costs are, what the legal positions are, and whether there's any risk to the City Council on somebody claiming costs back from us.
I think there'll be lots of stuff to learn. I think there is about whether the right process has been gone through by different organisations, or whether new requirements have appeared and are being retrospectively imposed upon people, and how that then affects them. But I think we've got to learn, and I personally think it needs to be done sooner, but we need to look at this when it's resolved sooner rather than later. Is that okay? Brian? Excellent. Shall we break into singing carols?
Can I say thank you for providing that update? And I wish you'd done it yesterday. And so please don't do that again.
Felicity's had to go to a carol service this afternoon and is recovering. Anyway, everybody I hope you have a good Christmas and New Year, and thank you everybody for what you're doing for transport in the city.